Single dad gives billionaire's disabled daughter a miracle, mom breaks down in tears. The night it happened, rain slammed against the hospital windows like fate itself demanding to be let in. In a quiet corner of the city where hope usually came with a price tag, a worn-out single father stood trembling, holding a paper cup of cold coffee, completely unaware that within hours his ordinary, invisible life would collide with unimaginable wealth, unbearable grief, and a miracle no money could buy. What followed would change not only a disabled child's future, but the hearts of everyone who witnessed it. Before the story unfolds any further, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this deserve to be felt together. Ethan Cole had not planned to be a hero. He barely managed to be a survivor. At 38, he was a single father to a 7-year-old son, Liam, juggling night shifts as a hospital janitor and early mornings packing lunches that often consisted of whatever was left in the fridge. His wife had died 3 years earlier from a sudden aneurysm, leaving behind medical bills, grief that clung to the walls, and a silence in the house that never quite went away. Ethan carried that silence with him everywhere, especially into the hospital halls where he worked. He cleaned floors that reflected lives at their most fragile, overheard prayers whispered into pillows, and learned to keep his head down in a world that rarely looked back. Liam was his anchor. A bright, gentle child who understood far too much for his age, Liam often waited in the hospital cafeteria after school, coloring quietly while his father finished his shift. Ethan had taught him to stay out of the way, to be invisible when needed, because the world, he believed, had little patience for those who slowed it down. Ethan never imagined that invisibility would be the very thing that placed him in the path of destiny. On the 12th floor of the same hospital lived a different reality. Private rooms, hushed staff, and an entire wing funded by one name, Harrington. Clara Harrington, the only daughter of tech billionaire Richard Harrington, had been confined to a wheelchair since a spinal injury at age 4. Now 10, she spent more time in rehabilitation centers than playgrounds, more time watching life than participating in it. Her mother, Evelyn Harrington, a woman accustomed to control and influence, had watched every specialist money could summon fail to deliver more than cautious optimism. Surgeries had stabilized Clara, but she could not walk. Every failed promise chipped away at Evelyn's composure until only exhaustion remained. Clara had been admitted again after a complication during therapy. It was supposed to be routine, but nothing ever felt routine when your child lived with pain. Evelyn stayed by her bedside, nights blurring into mornings, the hum of machines becoming a cruel lullaby. Nurses came and went. Doctors spoke in careful language. And then there was Ethan, unseen, pushing his cleaning cart past the door every night. Ethan noticed Clara because she noticed him. One evening, while he wiped down the hallway floor, he felt a small presence watching. Clara sat by the window in her wheelchair, tracing raindrops on the glass. Instead of looking through him like most people did, her eyes followed his movements with curiosity. Ethan nodded politely and kept working. Over the next few nights, the pattern repeated. No words were exchanged. No rules were broken. Just a quiet acknowledgement between two souls who knew what it meant to be overlooked. What Ethan didn't know was that Clara had once loved music. Before her injury, she danced constantly, spinning to melodies only she seemed to hear. Afterward, the music stopped. Therapy became mechanical. Joy became rare. But watching Ethan work, she noticed something strange. As he cleaned, he hummed softly, almost unconsciously. Old lullabies, fragments of songs meant for children. Clara felt something stir, something familiar and warm. One night, Liam waited longer than usual. Ethan, running late, brought him upstairs to the empty physical therapy room so he could finish his shift nearby. Liam, restless, began tapping his fingers on the parallel bars, creating a rhythm. Ethan smiled, adding a hum. It was small, harmless, and unnoticed, until Clara's wheelchair appeared in the doorway, pushed slowly by her mother. Evelyn had wandered the halls, desperate for distraction. When she heard the sound, something raw broke through her exhaustion. She watched from a distance as Ethan and his son unknowingly filled the sterile room with warmth. Liam began moving his feet in place, mimicking dance steps he remembered from school. Ethan encouraged him with gentle gestures, careful not to draw attention. Then Clara did something no one expected. She asked to be brought closer. Evelyn hesitated, fear and hope wrestling inside her. But she pushed the wheelchair forward. Clara's eyes were bright, fixed on Liam's feet. Ethan froze, realizing too late that he had crossed an invisible line. Apologies rushed through his mind, but before he could retreat, Clara lifted her hands and began moving them to the rhythm. It was awkward, uneven, but unmistakably intentional. Something shifted in that room. The sterile walls seemed to soften. Ethan, guided by instinct born of loss and love, adjusted the rhythm, slowing it, making it gentle. He positioned Liam so Clara could mirror the movement with her arms and shoulders. It was not therapy. It was play. It was music reclaiming space. Evelyn watched, breath caught in her chest. She had paid fortunes for specialists who treated Clara like a project. This man, who scrubbed floors for a living, saw her daughter as a child first. Tears welled before she could stop them. Over the following days, Evelyn requested that Ethan be allowed to bring Liam during certain hours. Officially, it was framed as harmless interaction. Unofficially, it became a ritual. Music, movement, laughter that echoed softly through the halls. Ethan never asked for anything. He simply showed up, guided by empathy and a father's instinct to heal through presence. Something incredible began to happen. Clara's posture improved. Her engagement increased. Therapists noticed stronger responses, better balance while seated. When asked what had changed, Clara pointed not to machines or charts, but to the door where Ethan usually appeared. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. During one session, inspired by the familiar rhythm, Clara shifted her weight forward. With assistance, her feet touched the ground. It was supposed to be symbolic, nothing more. But then, with trembling legs and eyes locked on Ethan, she pushed. Just a little. Enough to rise inches from the chair. The room went silent. Evelyn collapsed into a chair, hands over her mouth, tears spilling freely as years of restraint shattered. Doctors rushed in, cautious but stunned. It wasn't a cure. It wasn't magic. But it was more progress than months of clinical effort had achieved. And it came from connection, not calculation. News traveled fast. Richard Harrington arrived within hours, prepared to buy answers. Instead, he found a janitor quietly sitting on the floor, letting his son color while Clara rested, smiling. Richard listened as Evelyn explained everything, her voice breaking repeatedly. For the first time in years, wealth felt useless in the face of humility. Ethan expected consequences. Instead, he was offered gratitude, recognition, even money. He refused the money. What he asked for was simple. Better access to therapy for Clara that felt human. And stability for his son. Richard Harrington, a man used to transactions, found himself changed by a request so modest it hurt. The hospital approved a new integrative program. Ethan was hired as a patient support assistant, trained to work with children through music and movement. Liam received a scholarship to a private school. Clara continued therapy, now infused with joy instead of dread. Months later, Clara took her first assisted steps during a public fundraiser. Cameras flashed. Applause thundered. But behind the spectacle stood Evelyn, watching Ethan and Liam in the crowd, knowing the real miracle had nothing to do with walking. It was about being seen. As this story draws near its end, if it has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in quiet miracles, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. And before the final moment, we ask you something special. Please comment below and tell us what kindness means to you. Your words may inspire someone who feels invisible today. Ethan never considered himself extraordinary. He still cleaned floors sometimes, still packed simple lunches, still hummed without realizing it. But in a world obsessed with power and wealth, his presence became proof that healing often begins where money ends. Evelyn never forgot the night she broke down in tears, not from despair, but from hope reborn. And Clara, standing taller each day, carried within her the rhythm that reminded everyone watching that miracles don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes, they quietly mop the floor beside you, waiting to be noticed.